Welcome back to Hobo Joe Garage. Show you how to do rear brakes. 2018 Ford Ecosport. Non-turbo, all-wheel drive. Part numbers for the pads and rotors. Get the caliper off. Remove 2 plastic plugs. In the back of the caliper. Maybe 7mm X side pins. Before you do that, you remove the front spring clip. Take a little pry driver. Just pry it off. Take your 7mm. Go in where these pins are and remove them. You want to remove them. Inspect them for rust or excess wear. Focus. If they're dirty, you want to clean them up. Wire wheel, wire brush. And then simply lift off brake caliper. Set it off to the side. Normally you don't want to let it hang by the hose, but since it's a parking brake cable, just suspend it. If not, you can always get a hook. Tie it up. There are 2 13mm bolts. You would remove those next. And you can easily get your pads out here as well. Once you have the 2 bolts removed, you can easily lift the bracket off. You would go in and clean areas on this where the pads sit and ride. You would clean the rust off. If you have a sandblaster, use that. If not, you can use a file, a brake caliper file like this, and then a wire brush or a grinder with a wire brush attachment to clean them up, finish cleaning them up. You want to clean the caliper boot before you push it back in, otherwise you can introduce debris inside the boot. You're at it, clean the pads as well. This style of caliper, you have to push the piston back in. I have a tool, Astro 78618. I got this off of Amazon. There's different adapters that you can use, but you should be able to rent them from any of your auto parts stores, Advance, O'Reilly's, AutoZone. This is with the tool set up in there. Get the adapter you need for your caliper, set it up, then you just twist it and push the caliper back in. Similar to this, it's not easy to do one-handed. Get done twisting it in, you want to make sure those 2 holes are perfectly up and down so the pad will sit in to the lower hole. Next, you want to remove the rotor. I'm in the Northeast, there's a lot of rust, so take a hammer or a hammer, hit here. Don't want to hit here. You're in for a bad day if you do that. Couple good hits with the persuader, comes right off. What you want to do is clean up the surface here where the rotor sits. If you don't, rotor gets that cockeyed on there. and you get a pulsation and or vibration through the brake pedal, but you could also get it through the wheel, because the wheel sits on the rotor, which is bolted to the sub. Good time now to check it as well for if you hear any bearing noise. The wheel bearing is right in behind here. Just use a wire brush. You can use a drill. This is a 1/4 inch die grinder, electric one. You can use pneumatic as well. And you can get these little roll-lock discs on Cookie Disc on Amazon. That'll help to cut through the rust. Let's here you can see how much cleaner that is. Just take a little brake cleaner, rinse the rust off. Have a container or pig mat or something underneath. Once you get it cleaned up, since I'm in the Northeast where it rusts, this will turn to rust in no time. So I just use a product called Fluid Film. It's a lanolin based rust protectant. I can use anti-seize, a thin coat of anti-seize. PV Plaster has a product. There's multiple things out there. You just want to coat this to prevent it from getting rusty. A little light shot before you put the rotor on. Put your new rotor on. You take a lug nut, put it up against the surface of the rotor, and they'll hold it in place. Now, if you just take regular rotors from the parts store, they're not coated, take some brake cleaner on a rag. You want to clean the braking surface front and rear where the pads sit, because there's normally a coating on it, keep it from rusting. You want to remove that, otherwise it could contaminate the brake pads. You see this is the bracket all cleaned up. Just use the file and that whizzy wheel, clean them up. You want every spot that the pad sits to be nice and clean, no rust. You want to take brake parts lubricant. This is Permatex Extreme. Get an Advance Auto or anywhere like that. You want to put it in the spots where the pad would ride. This will help prevent rust from building. Put your bracket back on, tighten down your two 13mm bolts. You want them good and snug. I don't know what the torque spec is offhand, but you want them tight. Take your new pad. There is a direction. The back of this arrow goes towards the front of the vehicle. You want the one with the spring assist to be on the inside. Inside. Add a pad that does not have little springles on the outside. This should be nice and smooth, free. You want to take the lubricant as well. You want to put it on the piston face and also on the back side of the ears, the caliper. Anywhere there's metal to metal contact, that'll prevent noise and squeaks of that nature. You want to put your caliper back on. Make sure your brake hose, this is kind of hard to do as it has a park and brake cable built into the caliper. But other styles, you want to make sure there's no curlicue or pig's tail in that hose. You want it nice and even. Take your slides, lube them up, a little silicone paste or brake lube, whatever you happen to have. Push that one in. Grab the other one. Put that in. You want to start these by hand, that way you don't cross thread them into the bracket. You want to make sure to tighten those down. The manufacturer specification. Then take your little caps, put them back in, and take your spring. There's 2 holes here. You want it to, your spring goes under the caliper bracket, goes into that hole. And you want to do that for this other side as well. It's it could be a little tricky. Put that one in. I had to put the phone down. It's easier to do it with 2 hands and with one and hold the camera in the other. But get that back in, make sure they're pushed all the way in. And make sure the caliper slide's nice and free. You want it nice and free. You don't want a sticking caliper. It causes premature pad wear excess heat. You can warp a rotor. So once you have that, take your wheel, put your wheel back on, tighten it down to manufacturer's specifications. And that's it. One other point of notice with these lug nuts, since we are in the Northeast, once I get this thing off of here, these can swell. These are normally a 19 millimeter. What happens is it's a two-piece. You have your inner nut, then there's outer chrome. The nut can swell. You won't be able to get your socket on there. So it might take some trial of getting a different size socket on there, either standard size or I believe Astro makes a half size, so it'd be a 19 and a half. Worst comes to worst, if the chrome cap spins, you take a really sharp chisel and a hammer and you knock this chrome cap off and it'll give you the steel lug nut underneath it. That's what I had to do on the other side on this vehicle. Hope that helps. Thanks for viewing. Like, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Thank you. One thing that I failed to mention, and it's super important, after you're doing your brake job, you want to go in and pump your brake pedal a couple times to make sure that the pedal is firm, and to also check your fluid level after you're done. It should be between the minimum and maximum mark, depending on how new the rest of your braking system is. Okay, thank you.